This is Red Dog Superior Firepower, the game developed by Argonaut and put out by the good folks at Crave. If the name Argonaut sounds familiar, it might be because these are the guys who made the original Star Fox. Like Star Fox, this game is primarily a shooter. Though you can roam freely, the levels tend to be railed. They usher you into the next environment, and you don't have a lot of leeway to really go exploring, though some areas you can roam about and discover new power-ups and secrets. Okay, well that's enough flipping through the manual. Let's go and see what the game's all about. If you've ever wanted to drive a bouncy moon rover over rough terrain and blowing the crap out of enemies, you've come to the right place. Between the delightfully bouncy tank you get to drive, the tight control, and the funk soundtrack, this game is a joy to play. And as you might have guessed, there's a lot of tricky terrain to navigate in addition to just shooting. Your tank also has a shield that you can use to shoot the projectiles right back at the enemies that launched them. The levels are well varied. You're still looking at the same level you were looking at the beginning. Here's a part where you have to disarm a gun before the elevator reaches the top. There's a lot of platforming in this game, actually. There are parts where you have to bounce your tank across ponds. There are parts where you have to kind of go up the sides of these bowls by using centrifugal force. And as you see here, some of the levels branch. And these guys with the shield, gotta wait for them to lower it, or you can just do this. And the weapons are mad cool. Look at the sidearm I just got. It's a curved homing laser. For some reason, I feel like European games often have just the coolest looking power-ups. I mean, this is going back to stuff like Battle Squadron, and you know, even though I didn't like Gods, the weapons are really sweet in that game. I remember when I was first discovering Red Dog, the other game I was playing was the first Metroid Prime on GameCube, and that was current at the time. And somehow this level really kind of reminded me of Metroid, and I don't have a good reason for that. I think it's just maybe an association. Similar kind of lava environments, I guess. The game often alternates these wide open arena areas with these narrow passageways, whether it's going down a pipe or going down a cave, and I feel like that actually keeps things moving pretty well. I remember that generation MDK was kind of a big deal, MDK2 rather, and they're kind of different styles of games, but I would much rather play this than MDK2. I think it's just down to personal preference, but I feel like this game's just a lot more playable. And the bosses are pretty cool in this too. They're all pretty well patterned. They really remind me of arcade game bosses. They don't seem like the kind of things you'd see in, most explory sorts of games. Let's talk about the graphics for a second. They're pretty good. They do only move at 30 frames a second, though it's a steady 30 frames a second. It doesn't hurt and jerk. and the polygon count doesn't seem to really be pushing the Dreamcast super hard. Some of the earlier levels look really good, while some of the later ones seem much more jaggy. I wonder if they just ran out of time, or I'm not sure why it went that way, but there you go. I love that funk soundtrack. I really wouldn't have it any other way. It just underscores the gleeful destruction in Red Dog. I've got to say that for a game of this time, the camera is also pretty well behaved. It doesn't really get stuck behind walls or anything like that. And the controls are really good too. It's not a dual stick game, obviously, because the Dreamcast only had one analog stick, but what you get is a threshold aiming system where you can actually aim when you're still, and if you move it farther, you start turning. And that might sound sloppy, but it works out very well. And after some practice, it'll be second nature. Speaking of practice, here's one of the puzzles where you have to go up this bowl-like structure, and this is a warm-up, because later in this level, it has rising water as you're going down these pipes like this, and it's I don't know if it's great or infuriating, but I'm glad they have it in the game. Speaking of infuriating, one thing I really don't like in the game are these spider enemies, and thankfully there aren't very many parts with them, but they just kind of drain your energy like this until you're dead. And they're very small and they're hard to target, very tedious. But there you go, no game's perfect. That part is actually after this upcoming submarine boss. Here you see me on this boat-like structure that you ride into the boss arena. And like I said, the bosses are very arcade style. In this one, you shoot down missiles gun game style. There's really no shortage of action in this game. I really feel like it takes a lot of cues from much more arcadey genres than what you saw a lot of the time in around 1999-2000. In addition to the main game, you also get these challenges you can play to unlock other weapons and things of that sort. Some of them are obstacle courses, some of them are arenas where you have to wipe out so many enemies in a period of time. I really feel like this was the developers going the extra mile. I mean, a lot of games didn't really have these extra challenge modes back then. I mean, sure, there's Crazy Taxi, and a little bit later than this you got Time Splitters 2. And now it's pretty much every game has something like that. But back then, this was a neat addition to the game. And you'll need the practice, because look at this last level. You really need a steady hand to not fall into the void of space. And yeah, I don't know why you would fall, because you're in space, but there you go, it does work in the game context. Kind of reminds me of Monkey Ball in a all-terrain vehicle. So that's Red Dog. If you like old school fast-paced 3D action games, give this guy a spin. It's cool and unusual. I'll catch you next time.